Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Leadership from the Heart. I am your host, Romy, and I am riding solo today. And what's the point of healing anyway, right? I saw a post yesterday, and the guy was talking about how difficult it is to move through the spiritual phase of things, the healing phase of life, once your ego kind of gets wrapped up into the healing part of it, because we've talked about the ego in the past, and it will absolutely still attach itself to whatever it needs to for it to remain alive, right? And it'll do that for the rest of your life because that's its job. That's the whole point of the ego. And your point is to acknowledge and to see the patterns and become aware of it and not let it stop you and all that beautiful stuff. But what I wrote to him in his comments that got a lot of good feedback was, this is the whole point, and I love it. This is what I wrote. I said, you start by chasing the BS for the wrong reason. Then you wake up one day and you start healing. And then you start chasing the healing to escape what you've been up until that point. And then all of a sudden, one day, you realize and you choose to be the human you were before the healing started. But this time, you're here, you're present. And now you're ready to have fun doing it. And I thought that was such a good depiction, at least of my healing journey, right? That's what I wanted to talk about in this episode, right? I don't think you're questioning, should I heal, right? You're likely thinking, if you haven't gone down the path already, like, what is it all for anyway? And I understand, right? For me particularly, healing was a advantageous push because I've always wanted to be a mom. And I just knew that I didn't want to bring my children into the world, into like my world, without me dealing with some of the things that I knew I had to deal with. And so my why was to heal from things that I could until I had kids. Obviously, once I have the kids, then you continue healing. But I wanted to be able to get like rid of things before they got here. And what I did not realize at the time was that the whole point of healing is not to escape the 3D. It's to get to a place where you actually choose to be here. And I've done all types of modalities to heal. I've done the plant medicine. I've done in the plant medicine family. I've done hape. I've done psilocybin, which is mushroom. I've done ayahuasca. I've done marijuana. I've done all of it, right? In the intention of getting to a higher place, a higher self. And I used plant medicine because to me, plant medicine is a hack, right? And I'm all about life hacks. I'm all about shortcuts as long as the result is the same. The only way a shortcut is actually real, now I feel like I'm getting into leadership, but the only time I approve a shortcut to be used is if the result is still the same, right? So you could take this into like a mentor-mentee relationship, right? The whole point is for the mentee to learn from the mentor so they don't necessarily have to make the same mistakes, right? And so plant medicine became a mentor to me. And what a beautiful mentor it is. Again, but that's my choice. That's the way I chose to heal. I have found that people have used other more natural modalities. I've also done a ton of breath work. Had a coach named Danny Morel, who his whole retreat is around breath work. And so I've done a ton of breathwork sessions, really, really deep breathwork sessions where your pineal gland is activated and you're in a different place, right? And so I'll never forget in my first psilocybin journey, I asked my shaman when I was in it, I asked him, I said, am I coming back from this? Because where I am, it's so beautiful and it's so loving and it's so like oneness. Why does anybody come back from this? And he assured me many times, because I didn't ask just once, I asked many times if I was coming back. And he reassured me several times that I was indeed coming back. And I didn't believe him because you're obviously not here, even though you're here, you know everything that's going on, but you're also, in a different place. And so it was it wasn't in that journey that I realized. It was in that journey that I realized you choose to be here. Like I choose to come back. And I started thinking like, oh my goodness, all these people who are, homeless or unhoused, like if they're on drugs and they're gone, and obviously there's a breaking point where you can just go and never come back. Perhaps, but I think the mind can do whatever it needs to do as long as it's, in control or whatever. But I realized that like they're just like they're still out there, right? Like they just haven't decided to come back yet. And it was such a profound moment for me because it shifted the way I thought about almost everything. Like once you go there, it's really hard to just like come back and be like a person who didn't see that, because once you see something, you can't like unsee it. And that's what that was like. And so, but before that, and I mentioned like the reason why I started healing, but before that, you walk through life almost like sleeping, like you're just moving through doing what you were told was right, especially like the Gen X and the millennials. Like we just listened and believed, and we didn't question, and we just fucking lived life so unconsciously, right? We were just doing the thing. We're going to go to school. We're going to get good grades. Some of us, we're going to be, whatever. You should go to college. You got to get a house. You got to get the relationship. And it was crazy. Like you're like chasing these things, and you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, and you don't even know why you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, but everybody else around you is trying. And so therefore I can't be different, right? I got to keep up too. And so you find that you're like chasing and you're chasing this achievement of things. For me, it was because my first mentor saw something in me and like pulled me forward, and we know the story of Jack, and before Jack it was Alan, and all these beautiful people in my life that saw something in me that I had no idea was in there. And I realized that like I waited for anyone to see me, pull me forward, tell me this was going to be my next position, tell me where I was going to be best. And I just did it. Like I didn't even, I questioned whether that's what I wanted to do. But besides that, it was just like, all right, well, I guess this is what life is. You just let adults tell you what you're going to do and how you're going to climb the ladder and what your next move is. Um, that was it. And until you got like the, the, the jolt, the push to awaken. And I think about that time now, and I'm like, man, like, where was I? Like, I know that I was there. I have the memories, but like, I wasn't in my body. I was in my body, but I wasn't in my body. I say a lot that it's just like, it's movement without choosing, and it comes from like a place of people pleasing. And people pleasing comes from survival, right? Because this is how I eat. Like, obviously, if I do enough things to make you like me, then you're going to pick me. And if you pick me, then that means I'm doing something right. And then you get on that hamster wheel of always trying to like be picked. It's where in my life it looked like I was winning, but I wasn't even there. Like I wasn't even there. And the thing is that life was good. Like my life growing up was amazing. I had the best of friends. My brother and I explored hella, like we were those kids, right? Out in the streets until nighttime. And then when we got old enough, we started going out, and then it was just such a good time. But like you knew that something was missing. And that's what I call like the jolt, the second act, right? And I'm pretty sure that my experience in Christian school was a big awakening for me. It was a big paradigm shift. I didn't quite understand that adults could let you down. I didn't understand that like the people who watch over you, and not necessarily like your parents, but your guardians, because back then it was a village, right? Back then, like everybody's parents looked out for everybody's kid. And I couldn't understand how these adults who were telling us to live one way were actually living a different way the whole time. And that was very, very fucking challenging for me. It was exactly what I needed. And I know that now, but at the time it really shook me up. And I walked away from a lot of things, a lot of faith, a lot of my Christian based faith was so shook that I said, like, if that's what Christianity is, if it's that hypocritical, I want none of it. Right. Because part of me knew that there was like a different version of God that I was being presented with. And if it was like one of two things, like either there's a different version of God, one that I feel in my soul that exists, and you guys have been lying to me the whole time, or like that is God and I want none of it. Like I was disgusted. And only because I didn't understand that they were humans. And so another pastor, because we started going to another church, but another pastor just told me one day, he's just like, yeah, but they're human, Romy. Like, and they're going to make mistakes too. And I'm okay with people making mistakes. I was just not okay with people living one way and telling you to live a different way and making you feel bad for living your way when they're living their way. And that's the piece of Christianity that I still to this day can't get behind, right? But what usually cracks you open is pain or loss, relationships, or something like what I just mentioned, which is like such a woke or jolt moment of the rose colored glasses coming off, and I don't think I chose to heal. I think it chose me. And at the time, it felt very punitive, and perhaps before I was aware of it, and I always talk about the whisper, the nudge, and the 2x4, but like God will absolutely tap you on the shoulder and whisper. And when you don't listen, most of us don't push, right? And his push is very different push. And it's not a push from anger or punishment. It's a push because this is what you said you wanted. Like, let's go, right? And then so you start this path, and the beginning feels so good when you first wake up and you're the matrix and all these things, and you're like, yeah, this feels so good, and oh my God, I feel lighter, and you feel lighter, and then you're now, you're in this other phase of what I call the spiritual hustle, where you know healing becomes the new achievement. And I was really good at life before this, and I've climbed the ladder and I keep getting achievements. And so now healing becomes the new achievement. And you dive into the books, the modalities, the teachers, the retreats, the nervous system work, the shadow work. You dive into all of it because you're like, man, I just want to chase this because you think you're going to finish healing. And you're thinking that at the end of this healing journey, there's going to be no pain. And so you're always running from pain or running towards pleasure. And in this healing journey, I found myself running. And one of my favorite artists, Trevor Hall, has a song that says, "You can't rush your healing." And I love the song, but I remember the first time I heard it, I didn't like it because I was just like, that goes against everything I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to rush this, man. Like, I'm trying to get through this as quickly as possible. Like, let's deal with all of it so that I can get to the other side and not feel pain anymore. When in reality, you're just escaping the same way you did before, just this time it's a different version, right? Because you think that at some point you're not going to heal. I mean, you're not going to feel pain anymore. And it's just another way to avoid being human. And so you kind of run yourself into a rut because integration is the most important part of healing. Without integration, without bringing it back into this world and what I call checkpoints to see if it indeed is something that you are aware of and that you are working on. Without that integration, and you're living in the 4 and the 5, like you're not here, you know what I mean? Like you literally just escape and you're having a hard time because you're physically in the 3 and you can't get, like, it's just so hard, right? And you're confused, like, why am I feeling like this? I just want to feel 4D 5D all the time, because 4D 5D, everything is up here. And this is what like a lot of people call like the woo woo, right? Like I just want to be in a forest and I want nothing around me and nothing triggers me and I'm at peace, because then you think that like you're protecting your peace by not coming back into this world, because this world is where everybody's hurting. Why would I come back here if there's no peace here? Which is my first question in my first ceremony was, why does anybody come back here? Like, this is crazy. Up here, it's nice. It's peaceful. We're all one. I see all the love and I see the truth about things that I, talk to my friends about in private. But like, you wonder, right? You wonder. And then when you're in the middle of it and you're getting tired or you are tired and you're literally like asking God for a break. You're just like, if we could just not do shadow work today, that would be really, really good. And I remember last year when I was going through my divorce, and it was another jolt. When I was going through my divorce, or my separation, I was like, holding on to God like I had never held on to him before. But I didn't know there was nothing else to hold on to. There was no one else. There was nothing else. No one else, nothing else was going to make me feel better. And so, not to say that there weren't amazing people who sat with me, because there were, on the phone, in person. I am forever grateful for those people. But there was something deeper, and we'll get into this in another episode, of a version of you and God who, like, when you guys come together, man, that you feel whole. And I needed to feel whole a lot back then because I felt so empty. And so I remember that I was journaling one day, and like I had a new awareness of something, of a pattern of mine that I had been, escaping, trying not to look at. And I was just like, oh, cool. Like, I'm aware of this now. And then I remember asking God, like, hey, so I'm aware now, and I appreciate the awareness. I'm always so grateful for the awareness. And then I told him, I was just like, but like, could we wait until we make this one like a learning lesson? Like, could my awareness just satisfy it? Like, I don't want to necessarily have to like look at it and feel the feelings of that. I think, and if I do, like, let's do it like in a month or two when I'm in a better place. And the next day, dude, I was on a walk and it hit me. And I was just like, I thought we agreed that we were going to wait. But, those were my plans, not God's plans. And his plans are way better than mine. And so I remember one day laying on my grass outside and just looking up at the sky. And it was like a weekday. And I remember feeling so free, so present, so here. And it was like, again, a Tuesday or something. And I felt this sense of freedom on a Tuesday that I usually only feel on Fridays and Saturdays. And I remember thinking, it's only Tuesday, and I'm not inundated with my weekly to-do list, and I'm just laying outside. And I realized that this feeling is available all the time. And it was a turning point for me because I realized that the whole point is this, right? The whole point is to experience right now. And in that moment, I realized, and I had realized before this too, but that there was no finish line. I knew that intellectually, but I had never felt that. And more importantly, felt safe in the fact that there was no finish line. I remember the first time I heard there was no finish line with me trying to get to the finish line. I remember thinking, I was scared. I was like, what do you mean there's no finish line? Like, this whole time, I'm just going to feel like this the whole time? Sitting outside or laying outside, I realized there's no finish line because it's endless, because you're endless. And, you're not here to escape the human experience. You're here to inhabit it completely and fully. And healing again was not about leaving. It was about returning. But this time, like, choosing to be here. And when you choose it, it has such a different ring to it. And I want to give you, some story behind that. I'll give you two, because I think one is mine and one is one where I was in a coaching course and I heard them coach this lady through it. And she was feeling like a victim of, it's going to sound silly, but it's not, of Oreo cookies, right? Just, she literally told our coach at the time, like, hey, I get into these binges and I just can't stop eating. And then before I know it, a whole sleeve is gone. And all of us have done this, but a whole sleeve is gone. But this was real for her. This was like traumatic, And she's like, and then before I know that, then the whole bag is gone and blah, 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 blah. And the coach literally said, like, bitch, you need to stop. And I was like, yo, what? Like, she paid money to be here. And he's like, tomorrow, I want you to go buy 2 packs of Oreos. And every time you put one in your mouth, I want you to say, I choose this. And at the time, I couldn't understand why he said that. And then he elaborated on, like, you need to stop being a victim and be the creator. You have 2 choices in this world. You could be a victim or you could be the creator. The victim says, the Oreos are making me eat them. Then before I know it, I eat a whole pack of Oreos and now I'm overweight and I'm always overweight because I can't control myself because the outside external factors control me. And what he was saying was go buy 2 fucking packs of Oreos and you choose to eat them and then tell me if you can't stop eating them. And that blew my mind. And so recently it was like a weekend and I was in my refrigerator. I was going to make breakfast and I was just like thinking of my to-do list for like my business. And I was just like, I don't really feel like doing anything. And immediately I thought about the 1%ers in the world. And I said, that's not the way a 1%er thinks. And then I immediately said, well, that's why they deserve everything they have because they don't have these mediocre thoughts. Maybe they have them, but they don't let them control them. And I too felt like a victim. Like I just need to rest and rest is important. I know you need to take inspired action and not work and not, work to burn out and stuff like that. You do need to honor there's balance and stuff like that. But I remember thinking like, man, this is why the 1%ers are where they are. And I remember thinking, good for them. They deserve that shit. They deserve that because here I am in my comfortable ass house as a W-2 earner and a business owner. And I'm living the life of my dreams, but not the life of my dreams, and telling myself that I'm not really in the mood to do what I know I need to do to be able to live the life of my dreams. And yet I want to complain about not being able to live the life of my dreams. And immediately just like, yeah, the 1%ers, they deserve it all. And I'm going to choose to sit on this couch right now and not do anything, but I am not a victim of that. I am actually going to choose to rest today. And immediately guilt left, all the thoughts left. I enjoyed myself on the couch. And then, of course, I went to work for an hour or whatever and felt completely satisfied. But just that shift of choosing because you are the creator. And so everything that's in your life, you've created, right? You're co-creating with God. And so what are you co-creating? What are you choosing consciously or unconsciously, right? That's the whole point. And so when you choose to come back into this 3D world, you are different. You're regulated. You're aware. You're embodied. When something triggers you, you're not ready to react because possibly your triggers, or this feels a little anxious, or this feels a little angry for me, or and when you're angry, because anger is not the problem. It's what people do when they're angry. That's the problem, right? Everything is a symptom of the thing. None of the feelings are actually wrong. It's what you do because of that, right? So like jealousy, let's use jealousy. Jealousy in itself is a feeling, and it's not a bad feeling. I mean, it doesn't feel good, but in it of itself doesn't make you do bad things. But because you're jealous or because you feel jealous, you then think you have to act like you're jealous. And that is where we make mistakes. When we're angry, same thing, right? Being angry is okay. It's what you choose to act on because you're angry that's not okay. And so when you are in this place where you realize, I chose to be here, and if I chose to be here and this is all my making, well, then let's make it pretty great, right? Like let's have some fun. Now I want to participate. Now I want to get in the game. Now I want love. But I want it from such a place that I don't even need it because I am it, that it is all around me all the time and I feel it all the time now. But it takes jolts to get through it, right? Now I want to make the most money I've ever made, ever, this year. Now I want to have the most pleasure I've ever had this year. Now I want to make the most of what I've ever made this year, right now, not to fill this empty void and chasing and keeping up with the Joneses. I've got to admit there are no more Joneses in my life. There is no one else that I want to be like other than me. And it's such a freeing feeling. And so I'm really back to the same person I was before the journey, but this time I'm different. This time I'm aware. You've got to peek behind the veil, so to say. You see the game, you see the illusions, you see the things that aren't real. I believe that your whole life is just you and the creator, right? I think the whole life is just you and God. And the faster you choose to say yes to your calling, to your journey, to being here, the faster you get to land and be present. And, I think that my separation, divorce taught me one thing, which is, and it's going to sound unconventional, but suffering is a choice, right? Suffering is a choice. I found that the longer I did not accept the separation, I was suffering. And the moment or moments, because I had to accept it many times, it's not just, oh, I accepted it and we're blah, 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 right? But I mean, it could be, but for me, it wasn't that. It was accepting it over and over and over and feeling the slight relief over and over and over again. Pain, I think, is inevitable. I think pain is part of life and it's here to teach us things. And how long we stay in the pain is also up to us. I find that suffering is definitely a choice. Suffering usually happens because you're not accepting what is true, what is reality. In my case, it was just that like you and your spouse are going to split up or you're split up and this is not the life you envisioned, but the faster you can accept it, the faster you'll move on. I don't think I think you ask for things in life and sometimes God answers yes. And sometimes he prepares you to be the person who can hold it. And in the times that he builds you into the person who can hold it, he's often giving you breadcrumbs. And, you know, for me, things that are attractive, right? People, places, things are usually my cues to like pay attention because it's got to catch my eye, right? And if it catches my eye and then I can dive into it and I can dissect and I can see what parts or what things there are for me to learn there. And so for me, I know, and I'm sure for other people, my desires aren't necessarily my distractions, although they could be if I obsess over them and go down that path. But they're really just invitations to say, hey, there's something here for you if you choose to look at it, right? And whereas before, if I was attracted to something that I needed to conquer it, like I needed to conquer the person, the experience, the thing, the job, the role, where now it's just I am in it and I am experiencing it and I'm having a good time with it. And in having a good time with it, things are going to go wrong, right? Things are going to go bad. Things aren't going to go the way you expected. And it's just like the way you move in that, the way you say, that's interesting and extract the lessons and move on. It's a lot about alchemy and how you can alchemize the things that happen in life to work again for you. Uh, Because everything that you ask for answers, I think, and is always trying to shape you into the person that you're asking to become. Short story on that is I've been saying over and over again, I get paid to exist, right? I get paid for my mind. I get paid for my ideas. I get paid millions of dollars for being who I am and just giving like not necessarily my opinion, but like my strategies and leadership and all the things, including this, sharing my healing journey. And I found myself really annoyed when people would call and ask for my opinion, friends, family. And so I realized recently that if I'm asking to make millions off of my ideas and my mind and for me to exist, this is it. So this whole time, I've been saying I want to be paid millions to exist and for my mind and for my thoughts and ideas and stuff like that. And yet pushing it away subconsciously because one more person needs one more thing from me. And when you realize that God is literally answering you, it's just not the way you thought it was going to get answered. But when you literally see that he's breadcrumbing you, well, you said you want to get paid millions for your ideas and thoughts. Let's see how you do when this person calls you and asks you for your ideas or your thoughts. And let's see how this person, and let's see how this, and let's see how that. And when you realize what's actually happening, you start to open up and you start to understand, like, you're building the vessel, to be able to hold this. Then you start to, like, again, see the game, get in the game, play the game, get good at the game. It's this main character energy that I am completely bought in 2026, because, before that, life happened around you. Now life is happening and you're inside of it and you're the main character. And that's not in like an ego way. It's more like a who you are embodied way. And you start to remember things. I went on a hike the other day and I started to cry. And it's because I remembered this little Romy, this little girl who loved taking care of people the same way I do now. But she had such an innocence to it and such a pure heart in it. And she didn't do it with any intention of getting anything from it. And I remember that girl and I love that girl. And I just wept because I felt like I found her again, And so in remembering things and in choosing things, you get to unlock these things that you hid away because they weren't safe. And little Romy at the time wasn't safe to be who she was, because the world, I don't want to say taught her some hard lessons, but the world is the world. And I'm not mad at anyone. I honestly think that they're things that the creator and I left for myself so that I could go on this journey, so that I could tuck it away and lock it away and like choose me over and over and over and over and over and over again until I found her again. That is my purpose. I know that my purpose is for me to choose me, and God just keeps reminding me of that. Not the greatest ways, but it is the greatest thing. And so if you're in this journey, or when you're in this part, there's going to be a lot of what we call dark night of the soul, where it is just you and the creator. And, you know, Tupac did say, the night is darkest before the dawn, but there's a new day, right? And you've got to hold on. You've got to hold on. There's a whole other side. You're never alone. You may be lonely, but you're never alone. And there's going to be times where this healing journey feels like it's broken you more than it's fixed you or saved you or healed you. That's the turning point. You're literally at the corner. And so, just keep turning, just keep going, and be encouraged that it happens to all of us, that sometimes all you can do is hold on. You have to hold on because it gets better. Because, when you're in the darkness and you're searching, just remember that you're just looking for you. And the only thing on the other side of that is you as well. And, God, the God that lives inside of you and the God that is greater than all of us. And all the cliche phrases are true. And I think that we call them cliches because we wanted to almost give ourselves like a little hide and seek, and that's just so cliche to say. But when you turn the corner, you realize that all the cliche terms were real. My brother and I had a conversation Sunday, and he's like, I don't really understand why people say people are afraid of success. Like, that's bullshit to me. And I was just like, yeah, me too, in the past. But I understand now when people say that you're afraid of success. It's not that you're afraid of success. Like, it's not like, oh God, please, I'm so afraid of $40 million, right? It's not that. That's the surface level part. That's the cliche part. That's the part that we, how do you say this? Like dumb down or like shoo away to say like, oh, those things are so silly. But the reality is that you are afraid of success. Because the truth is that if you weren't, then you would be successful, whatever your definition of success is. And so I explained to him that it's not the idea of afraid of $40 million, right? But let's say to make $1 million, which is my goal this year, and it's a tall goal. But who does Romy have to become to make $1 million this year? What versions of me do I have to release, and what versions of me do I have to adopt to make that, to start that? Like that is what's scary. That is the unknown, and that is what people tend to stop at, right? They get to this point where it's now time to get out of the boat and like put your eyes on God, right? And that is the part of success that you're scared of. Those are the parts that you're not ready to kill off yet, because that's going to require a whole different version of you that may not exist yet. And so, are you scared of $40 million? No, but the person that you have to become in order to obtain that 40 million, possibly. You're possibly a little scared of that person, only because of what you have to leave behind, and only because of the things that you believe that you have to endure to get there, whether it's criticism, if you're afraid of rejection, if you have an abandonment wound. All of those things are things, everybody's here to heal. Some of us multiple things, some of us one big thing, but to have to look at that is the scariest part. And so what's the point of healing, right? That's the whole point of this podcast. And it's not about being perfect, for sure, because far from it. It isn't to reach enlightenment, although becoming enlightened would be a beautiful thing. The point of healing is to choose to live fully, consciously, and on purpose, right? With purpose, whatever direction that leads you to. And so I want to encourage you today that you're not behind, you're not broken, you didn't waste your time. You're simply arriving to a place. And I want you to enjoy as much as you can the journey there. There's some really, really great days, and there's some really dark days, and that's just part of the journey, And if you want to do something after this episode, there are 2 reflection questions that I came up with to ask to sort of gently jolt you. And the first one is, where am I transcending instead of participating? Where am I trying to escape? What parts of my life am I trying to escape? And why? What is there? Because that intersection between where it is and you, where that meets, that's where the tears start to flow. That's when your nervous system starts to say, hey, this is different. Or it's a very familiar feeling from the past, from your adolescent years, or your years of being a hormonal teenager. And the second question is, what would it look like to choose my life again? Not someday, but now, right? So I know when I first started my healing journey, I was scared of who I was going to become. But because deep down, I knew that there were things in my life that no longer belonged, and yet I kept them there. And my marriage was one of them. I don't think that's a secret to her either, right? I think she did the same thing. And it was just something we knew but couldn't talk about until it was time, right? And to know now, a year later, almost, that it was all part of this divine plan. And I don't think we've ever been happier. Although we are apart, we are better for it. And so the point of healing is to get to this place of wanting to be here, and wanting to have fun, and wanting to love on everyone that comes across your connection, and just exuding love, because I've always seen people exude love so effortlessly. And I always wondered, like, where did they come from? Like, how is this? And I think I'm one of those people, but like inside, it didn't feel effortless. It felt like work. It felt like obligation. And there's some other realizations with that I was conditioned with, but I wanted to like learn to love effortlessly. And I can, honest to God, say, like, think I'm here. Like, I think I'm in a place where I'm still going to have challenges. I'm still going to crash out. That's part of it. Crashing out, crying, having dark days, having moments, heartbreak, pain, all of that is part of life. It's part of the experience. But when you know that, you can look at it differently, right? You can have the thing happen and say, I understand. I don't know why this is happening. I don't love that this is happening. I don't prefer this to happen. However, I have faith in God, and I know that everything that happens is for my good. And so, although I can't see it right now, I am asking for the awareness to just peek at it in the really hard days, just to give me a glimmer of hope and be able to move through that and alchemize that and learn from it. So with that, I think this episode is over and I wish you the best of luck. And I want to be a resource for you if you need one. There is never any shame in where you are. At least there, I don't want to say should not. That sounds very telling you what to do, but just allow yourself to be vulnerable. Allow yourself to ask for help. That was another big lesson for me, asking for help. Just know that that's my life's purpose, right? Is to help. So if you need support, if you need a resource, I want to be that for you. And with that, I leave you and thank you for listening. Please share with somebody that you think could benefit from this. Like, subscribe, do all the things, and I will catch you next time. This was a longer episode than I intended, but it's all good. It's all part of it. See you next time, guys. Peace.